And then about 18 months later, I think that's when it hit me. Oh my gosh, like I had thousands of clients.
Welcome to the Legacy Branding Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Beauparlant, here to guide you through the journey of selling your business and building a personal brand that leaves a lasting impact. On the show, we'll explore real-life founder stories, expert insights, and actionable strategies to help you navigate the transition, avoid post-sale crisis, and create your impact-driven legacy brand. Whether you're thinking of selling, building to sell, or already on the other side, this podcast is your go-to resource for making your next evolution your best one yet. Let's dive in. Today, I'm excited to welcome Anthea Mumby to the Legacy Branding Podcast. Anthea began her entrepreneurial journey in her teens, working alongside her father in the family's insurance business. A natural visionary and strategic thinker, she transformed the company by improving profitability, building strategic partnerships, and leading client sales. Then, along with her husband, she grew the business into a nationally recognized success before selling it in 2020. Since then, she has channeled her expertise into consulting for insurance brokers, mentoring entrepreneurial couples, and leading masterminds for business owners. And her passion for creating meaningful impact extends beyond business as she also supports youth through equine facilitation. Welcome, Anthea.
Hey, Laura, thanks so much. It's great to be here today.
In fact, we met before you sold your business, just before, I think, because we met when I was speaking at an event, March 11th, I believe it was, 2020. Or March 10th. It was that week that the world literally shut down. I think it was the day before that schools got closed and it was formally announced. And so that was my last speaking engagement before the pandemic, but I definitely remember meeting you that day.
Yeah, it seems like it was forever, but yeah.
So I have so many questions because I think your journey has been so fascinating. So I wanted to start by asking about this journey from working in your family's insurance company as a teenager, then expanding the business, working with your husband in that business, and then selling it. And I would love to know, what are some of the lessons that you learned from that journey that have stayed with you?
Yeah, the biggest one for me has always been around the vision piece. And that it's really important for us as business owners that we keep creating that vision for ourselves, our team, our clients. And I remember when I was in my teens and I had this conversation with my dad one day, and I said to him, "Dad, do you realize what a gold mine of opportunity you're sitting on, having created this niche in the insurance industry back in 1975. And he looked at me and he was like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "We can really expand this thing. And I'd love to help do that." So it was always around like that visionary piece and gathering the resources and the internal belief system to go after that vision. So that's always rung through all those years, and I'm still very present to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how old would you say you were at that point? I'm assuming you weren't still a teenager at that point.
Yeah, back in grade 9, we took typing class, and in those days,
I remember that class.
and one day, like I had the typing skill. My dad, he didn't know how to type. He eventually learned to do the 2-finger thing, but yeah, I took typing class, and so that became where my dad said, "Oh, you've got a skill set that would be helpful in the insurance brokerage." I think it was a combination of me seeing opportunity working with him and him like, I have a child that is willing to come in here and get involved and do some things.
Yeah, that's not always the case when you're an entrepreneur, that your kids are even remotely interested in working in your business one day. You can't always assume that one day my kids will want to take this over.
Exactly. Fast forwarding ahead to when it was time for me to contemplate selling my business. My daughter, we have one child, and absolutely not. She's in the medical profession. So she was not going to be the succession plan.
What was it like working with both your father and your husband? I think A lot of entrepreneurs may have a story where they've maybe gotten into a family business or they do work with their spouse. I do know a few entrepreneurs that fit that, but to have both your father and your husband in the business, can you share a little bit about what that was like?
Absolutely. I worked really well, and I still work with my husband on certain projects. I've been very fortunate that we both have, with my father and with my husband, worked really well together. My father was more kind of that, like the mentorship piece and building. With him, it was really around what are we going to co-create that was around the expansion opportunities that I saw what he didn't see as much. And with my husband, we still had that co-creation and that visionary piece. And with him, it was more around let's get very clear on how we're going to complement each other as a couple and make sure that the things that happen in the business strengthen our personal relationship as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask, working with your husband, like, how did you maintain that strength in your partnership, both in business and in life as parents and husband and wife? My husband and I work together, although we have our own businesses. We share an office space. Like, I have to kick him out of the office when I'm recording a podcast. I'm familiar with that, working together more side by side as opposed to in depth together. Do you think it was that you had these skills that complemented each other?
We didn't know that at the beginning. So at the beginning, we made a lot of mistakes because we weren't really clear. We were still quite young at the time as well. So we were still figuring ourselves out. And it took a fair number of mistakes and boundary issues and lack of clarity before we really started learning, okay, here's your lane, here's your expertise, here's mine, and we are going to respect that in each other. And he had his domain, I had mine, and I was pulling those pieces together that would help us to scale this business, the overall vision effectively. But there were a lot of going back into the earlier days where we would take too much home at night around the family dinner table as an example. So might be part of the reason my daughters did not become our succession plan.
I think they either love it or they don't. Like, we have one kid who is not interested in being an entrepreneur whatsoever, and the other is very entrepreneurial. And it, like, at the dinner table is like talking business ideas and planning and how to make money. And it's so interesting to see how wildly different they are, but how one kind of is following a little bit more in our shoes and the others, nope.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We always joked, because we're both creatives, that we'd end up with a kid who wanted to be like an accountant or something. That isn't the case, but we always thought it's usually the people that are the accountants or the lawyers that end up with the artist kids or vice versa.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know, and they're going to be on their own journey. So it sounds like boundaries and really understanding each other's lanes. Like, this is your role, that's your role, not taking it home too much. It's hard. We do talk about business a lot over the dinner table or on walks. So it's hard not to, I think, as entrepreneurs. Is there anything other than the boundaries and the really figuring out what each other's roles are that you would give as advice for other entrepreneurial couples working together?
Going to the boundaries piece, like acknowledging when one of you says, time out, I don't want to have this conversation right now. Can we just put it aside to later? That was something that I think I needed to learn more than my husband, because I was famous for let's talk in the hot tub about whatever. Yeah. The latest
hot tub conversations.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. And he'd be like, we're in the hot tub now. This is our time. Right. So put that in place. And like I said, just like the role clarity piece was really important to get that sorted out, and then share that with the team as well. So the team knew, like, who was responsible for what and who they could go to for what.
For everybody. Otherwise, they end up coming to the wrong person for the wrong thing.
Exactly. And it happened today, Laura. We just had a little bit of tech glitch before we got on this call. And like my husband was famous, the team would all be like, Douglas, help. And
Right.
he has fairy dust or something. I don't know what it is when it comes to tech, but he can just touch it and it cooperates.
But you're like, if it's a tech issue, don't come to me.
No,
I'm
exactly.
not the person for this job.
No.
And I think that works in any relationship, partnership, whether you're husband or in wife or not. Having the clear lanes, who does what, people come to you for, what you're responsible for.
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of business partnerships implode over the years from a bit of a distance, but it was always because one person felt that the other wasn't doing enough. There was not a clearly defined sort of role for each person. And then it became a buildup of resentment towards the other from what I could see.
Absolutely.
And you're like, it doesn't matter if you're married or you're not. If you have a business partnership, getting those things really crystal clear and written down, not just floating around in your heads,
This is
I
it.
think is a really important step.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's where the vision piece comes in, right? Clarity around the
Yeah.
vision, sharing the vision, talking about the vision, assessing it, all of that, and those conversations that need to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been almost 4 years since you sold the
Yeah.
business.
Just over October 1st was 4 years.
Absolutely wild. So, in looking back at that, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who there is a sense of loss and identity crisis or shift after they sell. So, how did you personally manage that transition?
The big one was around the community piece of it. A lot of our clients, again, the business went back to 1975. And I started it when I was quite young. I had actually grown up with a lot of our clients and even their kids, right? And
Yeah.
because we had a scholarship program at one point, we knew their kids, we knew their stories, and we knew what was going on in their lives. And when you go from, so that initial, okay, we got the deal over the line, all the criteria were met, the team members all had jobs, like everything that we wanted to happen happened. And then about 18 months later, I think that's when it hit me. Oh my gosh, like I had thousands of clients. I didn't talk to them all every day, of course, but that I was regularly in conversation with. And now I'm not, right? A consultant. I'm building a new business. I don't have 15 team members every day. So it's very, you go through that period, or I went through that period at least, where it was like, wow, okay, what happened to my community? Like, what happened to the people? Right. So I've had
Yeah.
to redefine, and I'm still redefining it. I'm still looking at my inner circle, and changes have happened, life circumstances have happened since as well. So still stepping back, assessing that, leaning into certain relationships, other relationships, not so much anymore. So it is a journey for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's not so much the business itself that you miss, it's more the interaction, the human connection with the clients and the people you were working with.
Yeah, exactly. I was traveling a couple of weeks ago and I got a message through LinkedIn from a former client. Can you help me? I've got an insurance problem. And I was like, oh, this is great. Like I'm on vacation. So I was immediately, yes, I'll make a connection for you. They'll be able to, so I can't sort it out for you. I'll put you in the hands of somebody who can. I was like, this is great. Yeah, it is that, those relationships.
So legacy is a big theme of this podcast. And I'd love to know, what does legacy mean to you, both professionally and personally?
In terms of the professional side of legacy, there's a few things. For me as an entrepreneur, I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. And when people say to me, are you going to retire? Have you retired? The answer is always no, absolutely not. I want to be like the Queen of England 3 days before, still having conversations, doing the royal wave, all of that. And for me, so that legacy piece is around, I guess, in a way, maybe it's inspiring and encouraging others that if you want to have a second, third, fourth, I don't know how many more businesses I'm going to start and sell and over the next decades. If I can encourage someone else, don't let anything be like, don't let there be an age stigma or anything that says you can't if you want to continue on your entrepreneurial journey. And if you don't, that's great too. But if you really feel that's something that is fulfills you, keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing I will say on the legacy piece on the professional side is the diversity. And in this, I'm referring specifically to the fact that I did work, as we talked about, with both my father and my husband. And men have been really great supporters, as have women. And I think it's regardless of gender, you can still have some really great partnerships with people. And I think that collaboration is really important.
So talk to me about personal legacy.
There's a couple of key areas for me that are quite important in terms of personal things that I'm doing. One is around, there's an equine program that I'm very supportive of. And when I have a personal conversation with somebody and they have a teenager who's really struggling, and I can say, hey, this is available, and it might suit them, maybe not, but it's something that might be a benefit to them to check out, because I think it, like in my experience as a teenager myself, I spent a lot of time around horses, and that really helped with some of the things that I was dealing with. Like teenage years are, yeah, they're great, and they can also be really challenging. Yeah, so on that personal side, that's been really rewarding for me. And then the other thing that I've been talking about more recently is being colorblind. And how is
Oh,
the
interesting.
yeah, so I'm one of the rare women that has been blessed with being colorblind, and how to help others that feel, in a sense, you feel ignored because there aren't the resources and the awareness, honestly, that this is something that people do struggle with, and it can be a challenge. When you think about branding, for example, that's
Yeah.
a tough one for me to do, and I'm not going to be in charge of discerning the exact colors for. I didn't do it for my last brand. I don't do it for this brand. But yeah, so I'm hoping that by opening up that conversation more to people, that there's a feeling of just, we all have stories, we all have our challenges, and there's ways to approach those challenges and have those conversations and be vulnerable. I think can really be very helpful and really powerful for people as well.
Integrating is accessibility with color. So we go through that. My designer Maria, every project she goes through with the color palette would be deemed as acceptable, unacceptable, might depend on font size, different things that would be a challenge, because we've actually worked with a client who is legally blind as well. And so not color blindness, but there are still bits she can see. But if the color is too light or there isn't enough contrast, she can't see and read what's on the page.
I'm applauding you for that, Laura, because yeah, it's important. Sometimes people don't realize that, like, they put documents in front of me and I can't read this. I can't interpret it. Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's good that you're being proactive in creating programs that allow that.
awesome. You talked about retirement and
Mhm.
not retiring, and I'm with you on that. I think
Mhm.
retiring, the word retirement would be a great thing, because I
Yeah.
think it is a bit of a false sense of something. And I've been with a lot of people that are in that third act of their life.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
don't know if you've heard that. I heard recently Jane Fonda did a talk, who I'm like, she's who I want to be when I'm
Yeah.
like 80, 88 or whatever, however old she is. When you're in your third act, it's not like you're dead. It's not like you're just waiting for the end. If your life is divided into thirds, there's so much you can do in that last third. And not everybody just wants to hit the golf course and
No.
drink Mai Tais on a beach. That's
No.
just, maybe you want more of that, and maybe you have the resources to do more of that.
Right.
But it doesn't mean you don't want to still contribute and do something purposeful. And I think the more purpose you have in your life, probably the longer and better you'll live.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would bet that that somebody who would know the stats would absolutely validate that as the case. Because I know the opposite is true, right? A lot of the times when people retire or sell, it can really diminish life expectancy
Yeah,
significantly. So you got to have
absolutely.
purpose.
Okay, so let's go back. You sold the business in 2020. When did you start your new consulting, mentoring, mastermind business, or has that been an evolution?
I started it before I sold the business.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it was the second week of 2020, I actually held an event in Waterloo, and I pulled together a bunch of entrepreneurs in the area, and I gave a talk. And I think at that point it was around vision and how are you creating the vision for your business that's exciting and getting the support around the vision, because you can't do it on your own. So I was doing that. Yeah, as I was probably completely crazy, because I was doing that as I was also in negotiations to sell a seven-figure business at the same time. Yeah.
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 That sounds like an entrepreneur.
Yes, exactly.
But what I love that you did is that you started it while you were still in your business. And I
Mhm.
think what I see a common mistake, and my recent guest, Julie, commented on this, that she wished that she had more other things in her life besides her business before she sold, or
Mm,
that she had been working on even hobbies. I think a lot of times people sell their business and they don't have a plan and they just lose themselves. And that's when the existential crisis happens.
yeah.
So it sounds like you were already in the midst of selling and you're already thinking about what's next and
Oh, yeah.
what is the impact? How can I continue doing this? And you started on that path before actually selling,
Oh,
which
yeah.
probably helped, even though you said you hit a bit of a realization about 18 months later.
Absolutely. Like I had already cast that 3-year vision for the future prior to selling that business. And then in that process, which was hard and time consuming and challenging, I had an advisor who was there, like on speed dial, who would bring me back to my vision so that I didn't get too emotional and cause the deal to go offside. So that was really helpful.
Okay, so what's next for you? What do you envision? What's your next 3-year vision look
Yeah,
like?
yeah. So I am back in the insurance space. That wasn't what it was originally looking, but certain things happened and the need is there. So I'm back. I'm consulting to insurance brokerages across Canada, and I help them to expand and sustain and protect their brokerage. And I'm really enjoying this work. I go in and I do my thing, and then I also help with the people who are going to step into the role. So there's leadership as part of the work that I do as well. And I'm blessed. My mother, we just took her out last night. We're spending time with her, doing some fun things and lots of travel. And I love spending time with our daughter as well. We're very fortunate that we have a 28-year-old who actually likes to hang out with mom and dad.
That is a beautiful thing. I
Yeah.
know, I feel like we do spend a lot of time together as a family, and then we forced our kids to spend a lot of time with us when we moved abroad for 10 months. And I'm so thankful that they still most of the time want to hang out with us, which is a beautiful thing. And I'm
Yeah.
excited for the day when our kids are your daughter's age and we're still hanging out, maybe traveling together, exploring and doing amazing things together.
Yeah.
So, how can people find you, connect with you, inquire about working with you?
People can check out my community. I'll share the link for that in the show notes. The theme is around riding the waves as a business owner. And how are you doing that successfully, safely, and sustaining yourself as well as your business to keep the balance? And then, of course, I love connecting with people on LinkedIn. And I'm thinking, I was just at a really wonderful mastermind experience last week in New York. So I'm thinking I might get back on track with doing some more of those. It's been, I think a year or two since I last led one, but I'm feeling like I might do some more of those in 2025.
Amazing. We'll make sure to gather all the links and include them with the episode and the show notes so people can find you, connect with you on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Anthea, for your insights and sharing your journey. I think you're doing amazing things, and I love that you have no plans to retire and you're going to just continue to grow businesses and help other businesses and travel and do all these amazing things with your family. So keep doing what you're doing and sharing your light with the world.
Thanks so much, Laura.
Thanks for tuning into the Legacy Branding Podcast. I hope today's episode has inspired and empowered you on your journey to building a brand that truly matters. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other founders who you think would benefit from listening. And if you're ready to take the next step in building your legacy brand, visit our website, labcreative.ca, to learn more and book a call. Don't forget to join us next time for more conversations that will help you navigate your transition and create your legacy. Until then, I'm Laura Beauparlant.